Oh, it's not quite as fast from Twitch's side. There we are. We're streaming. I'll go tell the world that we're live. Streaming, game dev, doing underwater stuff. Boof. So there are a couple of things that are on our list to do. We can do more level dev. We barely got started on level dev last time we were practicing. But there are also two other things that we need to start to consider. One is missions, and we've already got half of the start of a mission here. And the other is the pop-up displays for things like oxygen and so on. I think we can leave the oxygen stuff until last because I'd like to do it at the same time that we can do the surface. And right now there's no surface. We just don't have the shader we need for it yet. So I guess what we'll do is we will focus on... sorry, Twitch is telling me I have a path to affiliate completed as of last year, and that was critical news. That's strange. So anyway, what we're going to do is work on missions today. So we already have one set of mission-related resources. We've got the concept of a mission, which is floating around here, I think in the other level prefab, this one. We got this mission. Yeah. So we've got this mission, and if we turn it on, it will begin to seed the things that we want it to seed, which we can do just by giving it a little pop. It's not going to seed them in any way that's meaningful, unfortunately, because it's old and things have changed since then. But you can see how we've got our guide, and as we go back there, we'll be able to find the various things that we're looking for. That's all nice and good. We've also got a pop-up object, which allows us to do dialogue tests, which we can just put somewhere where it can be reached, and you can see that happen. So we'll just put it over here. And that would be just over this way. No? Where are you? Should be right here, right? I swam straight through it. Was I not high enough? Well, let's back up. There it is. It's just invisible, so it's hard to find. So we've also got this dialog box. So what we actually want to do is a couple of things. Obviously, that buddy panel, like that is, that's pretty ugly right now. That's not something we're going to be able to fix, because what we need in order to fix it is a water shader for the surface. I mean, we could work on that, I suppose. It wouldn't be terrible. But we also need that to be part of a progression. So right now what happens is this dialog box, which we'll put in the correct prefab, I think. Where's this? Delete that. This dialog box, it just runs a say command, this right here. What we need is the ability to create chains of events so that things happen and then other things happen, because we don't want everything to happen all at once. In order to do that, we're going to have to come up with a script engine. This is not a complicated thing at this stage, and we need to be careful not to let it get too complicated at this stage, because if we get it complicated now, then when we actually know what we want later on, we'll have to completely rebuild it. So we're going to try and keep it pretty simple. And that means that we're going to rely on some pretty basic setups. Let's go ahead and get it started. We're going to go ahead and call this it's basically a script, but it's not, calling it a script would be a bad idea because that's got too many other meanings. We can call it a scene, a mission scene. That'll do. And then what we'll do is we'll drop the mission scene object onto that dialog test cube for now. Shaboom. Here we are. Pop this up. So what we're going to want with the mission scene is we're going to want the ability to have a variety of targets say a variety of things, one after the other. And we're also going to want to allow triggered elements. Otto says, "Hi, I'm learning from you. Thanks." That sounds good. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this. The other reason is to stay focused. If you have any questions, you can let me know. I find that recently a lot of people have been asking questions about the mesh merge system, and that's like really old and obsolete, so I hope that's not what you've been learning from. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. What we're going to want is an object which can we're going to want some classes that we can use to spawn in mission events, like someone talking or an object getting switched out or getting teleported. Now, what you really want there is an interface with an arbitrary set of classes that descend from the interface. Problem with that is that Unity does not do interfaces very well. It doesn't really understand what an interface is. So we're going to go ahead and create that interface. We could create it as a mono behavior and then descend from the mono behavior instead of the interface. Problem with that is that it would force us to use mono behaviors for every single one of our mission objects. Trying to decide if that's a better or worse idea. We'll go ahead and do it the slow way for now, which is just creating a mono behavior setup. So we're going to go ahead and call this a mission scene element. And this is going to be a base object that we descend from. So base class we descend from for specific mission scene elements. There we are. So this is not something we're ever going to use on its own, but it's a stand-in for an interface, just because Unity is so bad at interfaces. So we'll want to have a couple of public virtual classes and probably some variables, but we can get to them as we need them. So we're going to want this, play. So the only problem I've got with this is that play is a pseudo-reserved word in Unity. We'll see whether or not it ends up barfing. So there are a couple of things that we need to consider. When we're playing a mission scene element, we need to know when the mission scene element is done. So in order for us to do that, we got two options. We can either keep an eye on the mission scene at all times, the mission scene element at all times, and then note when it's done, or we can just use an event that calls back, and that's what we're going to do. So public virtual void, that's not virtual, it's not even a void, it's public Unity event on complete. There we are. So here in play, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to do whatever we want to do and then make sure to hit on complete when we're done. So for now, we're going to just debug.log error using undescended mission scene element. That's no good. But then we'll just skip it. So we'll just say onComplete.invoke. There we are. Easy as pie. So what we'll do is we'll sign up for that Unity event before we call this mission scene element. So over here in the mission scene, we're going to have a list of those. Public list mission scene element elements. We're also going to want to have a quick little auto-populate. Elements equal elements dot elements equals new list mission scene element. We're allowed to pass in any IEnumerable, and the easiest IEnumerable is the get components in children mission scene element. However, this actually has another option which I forgot about and I continually forget about. So we'll say elements.clear, and then we will do this because I think we can just pass it. Yeah, see, we can pass it the result. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to pass it the results. There we are. That'll fill with all of the things that we contain, which will just be a handy way to handle this without having to work at it. The reason I put it in an auto-populate function is because if it happened automatically, we wouldn't be able to do complicated things with it. So I prefer to be able to do complicated things with it if we need. Which means that there's an extra step to setting up the simple stuff. But for now, that should be fine. So what we're going to need to do is the ability to play elements. So int public int current element, and we're going to go ahead and make that -1 by default. I have a public void play, and basically we're going to just do a current element plus plus. That's fine. Yeah. Should I make this a 0? No, I don't want it to be a 0. Public bool playing. Get if current element is less than 0 or current element is greater than or equal to elements dot count length count, then we want to return false. So return not that. There we go. So here what we can do is we can say current element plus plus, and then we can say if playing, then do stuff, right? So if we know that it's playing, then we know that as long as there are no null values in this list, we have a mission scene element we can grab. So mission scene element, I can just say current. Public mission scene element current. It's actually very hot out today, and I just walked for like an hour. So I'm pretty dehydrated and a little bit blurry, but it should be okay. I'll recover. So we're going to go ahead and say if not playing, return null, otherwise return elements current element index. We'll just call it index. There we are. So that will allow us to grab a current. And this is actually very similar to using some of the setups like... I'm actually not sure whether or not the version of Unity I have supports this, but we would be able to say something like elements, index, and that would be the same thing as using this setup. But in this case, I think it's fine to just use it like this. I don't mind not using cool features. Just gotta be, you know, reasonable about it. So let's go ahead and grab it. So we'll just say if current equals null. No, wait, we wanted to, I'm sorry, I'm thinking too many things at once here. So if we are not playing, then we'll want to just die. Easy. If we are playing, then what we're going to want to do is if we ran into a null value, if there's no current value, then play. Recursion in case of null entries. So this has a little bit of a risk because there is a JoviX says that something is super hot and the power went out for an hour. Oh yeah, you're probably in Europe. Many of my viewers are in Europe, which is undergoing quite a heat stroke. We had our heat stroke last week. Now he says neg. Oh, he's in California. Okay. Well, California is just as far away from me as UK, so it's all good. We are just now getting back into the swing of heat. We had 2 nice cool days. So we're going to go ahead, and if we do have a current value, we're going to do current.onComplete, and then we're going to add a listener. And that listener is going to be our new function, which doesn't yet exist, called... No, we don't need a new function. We can just say play. So then we just say current.play. Up here, what we're going to do is we're going to say if current, then current.onComplete.removeListener play. So that way we won't have any of them hanging around in case some of these elements get called twice. So what we've just done here is we've just created a very, very basic loop where we play an object and we sign up to call play again when that object is done playing. Very, very basic setup, right? And so what we'll do is we'll test that out by going down into our mission cube. Boop, 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 boop. Dropping in a mission scene element. Actually, I think we need to make it a child object. So go ahead and drop in a mission scene element. And then we'll just duplicate that. And then what we'll have is auto-populate. There we are. So that's all well and good. The only problem is we have no way to play it right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this playable by adding in a menu. There we are. Now we're going to be able to play it. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. So when we go over to the console here and we say mission scene play. Oh, it's an infinite loop. I busted it. I broke it. I don't know how though. All right, give me a second. I got to switch over to Phoenix Wright while I reboot the system. So, gonna kill off Unity. It's a little hard to find it because there are so many things on my server, on my computer, that take up more power than crashing Unity. For example, OBS and Chrome. Chrome isn't even doing anything right now. I guess it's playing Twitch. The loop was intentional, but it's not supposed to be infinite. I mean, if we look at what I've actually got here, index plus plus. So I'm adding to the index every time I call play. And the index is what determines whether or not we're playing. See? So I'm trying to figure out where... Oh! I forgot to return. A very, very basic flaw. I forgot that the debug log wasn't an error out log. It wasn't an exception. It was just a log. And so that was just me being stupid. Anyway, we got to copy it back over again because unfortunately for us, all of that hard work was wasted. We have to do like 5 seconds of work again. Just going to put it back in the place where it was. And then once again, we'll go down into our UI. Drop in, mission. We'll drop in our mission scene here. And then we will add in an empty object and drop in the mission scene element and duplicate it a couple times. Auto-populate the mission scene. There we go. And then down here, what we'll do is we'll switch this over to being mission scene play. Now we're going to save it, just in case I did something dumb. So when we go over here, we should just get a lot of noise out of the log file. Yep, there it is. So, sun's in my eyes. See? We got 5 dialogue test cubes done, which means it triggered 5 times. However, we didn't get any of these script objects giving us the warnings, and we should have gotten those 15 times, or whatever. Auto-populate. There we are. Let's try that again. Where are you? There you are. See, now what we had is we had a bunch of warnings. So it only plays through once because the index does not reset when we call play, and that's on purpose. So every single time we call play after the fact, it's just like, you already finished, dude, which is what we want. However, this is obviously a useless script object. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new category of class, which we will call speaker. We'll call it... Wow, that didn't work. You know what we're going to do? We are going to change the namespace. So these are just, I'm going to get specific enough that I don't want them in a shared namespace. There we are. And let's make sure I didn't break anything. Seems okay. All right. Oh, no, wait, it's barfed. Already contains a definition for mission. I don't give a shit if it already contains a definition for mission. Oh, I see. Unity's cracking down on the namespace. You probably shouldn't use namespaces that have the same name as a class in the namespace, though. That's something I found is annoying in Unity. Why don't we go ahead and call it missions with an S, just so that we don't have any problems with it later. There we go. There we are. There. Now when we create more mission scene elements, we don't have to name them anything complicated. We can just name them whatever we want, like, for example, speak. So we'll pop this up. It's going to be descended from mission scene element. And obviously we're going to be in the namespace missions. There we go. So what we're going to want is a tag, which we'll leave as null, and then, or as empty, since null is not an option. And then we're going to go ahead and give public string dialog. Default dialog. Easy as pie. Then what we can have is an override of our public virtual void play. It's a good thing that I've memorized that, because for some reason it is being obnoxious and refusing to autocomplete. That's fine. So when we override this, we're not going to be calling the base, because all the base does is barf. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and use the say command. There's a couple of different ways to use the say command. Right now what we're doing is we are using the say command that's built into the collision responder class, which is just a quick little loop like this. We can call this directly in here, though, which is what we're going to do. So over here in speak, we're going to say if sayer equals nothing or sayer equals buddy, talking head blah. Otherwise, debug.log warning, don't know how to identify sayers yet. Dialog is debug.log sayer plus dialog. And then here we're going to have the onComplete.invoke. Up here, however, what we want is the dialog box to actually call us back when it finishes. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to go over into the talking head and see how that happens. And you can see that what we say is we use this buddy.say. So we need to go over into buddy, which is a talking head, which is right here. So here's the dialog box. We're using the diving dialog here. This is the dialog box, the name of the class. If we use this, then what we're going to do is we're going to pop it up. And then when we destroy it, what we're going to want is to call an event that allows it to do whatever we need it to do. So for that, we're going to go ahead and put the events back in, and we're going to create a new public Unity, that's how you spell it, Unity event. We're going to say that this is onComplete. So down here, what we've got is a self-destruct, but we don't actually want it to be a self-destruct, in self-destruct. What we want is for it to be in onDestroy. Or is it onDestroyed? We'll put it in self-destruct for now. It's not really a reason to avoid it. So just onComplete.invoke. That way, when we are speaking, we can sign ourselves up for that event. However, in order for that to happen, this needs to return the dialog box. And you can see that instead, it just returns nothing. So we're going to need that to return diving dialog. And we're going to go ahead and return this here. Unfortunately for us, buddy.say doesn't return a diving dialog, so again, we're going to have to do that. So we're going to return current dialog box here. Otherwise, we're just going to return current dialog box. Here we are. Easy as pie. We're now throwing around this dialog box so that when we want to get that on complete, we can do it. Now we don't have it done yet. There we are. Oh, excuse me. Joviex says that tooltip is equal to spell check. Well, the thing is with overriding, tooltips are autocomplete's really handy because autocomplete will remind you of the names of the functions, their return types, and all that stuff. Tooltip equals spell check for... I'm not sure that I need a spell check. Did I get something spelled wrong? If I spelled it wrong, I'm probably spelling it wrong everywhere, in which case it's fine. Logically. I might look dumb. Auto-generate. Oh, I see. I spelled auto-generate wrong. That's an extremely minor problem. I'm not sure which of these has that silly auto-generate function, but it's largely unimportant. That's just a helper function. So, with that in mind, what we can do is go down here and replace this with a say. That might be why the autocomplete was screwing up, because a completely unrelated class wasn't properly compiling. I really am so happy that we continually have just a spray of random crap. That's fine. There we are. So, let's see. Finally, alright. Those warnings are my fault. They're the only ones that are. Alright, let's go down into missions, and these game objects, we're going to replace them with a speak command. And then we'll just remove the mission scene element, because that's not necessary. Delete. And we're going to go ahead and say whatever we want to say. You can see how the onComplete happens first because of the way that descending in Unity works. We can fix that if we need to, but it's just a minor annoyance. So we just add in like garbage, and then we'll duplicate it a few times. And then up here, we will go ahead and use that same auto-generate, auto-populate. There it is. And this time, we should get 3 conversational pop-up boxes, all 3 of which are just going to have garbage in them. One right after the other, right after the other. Yep. Now for the next. Oh, I have to click? Oh, E. There we are. So the question is, did it not call the function, or did the function not get set up right? Let's go ahead and take a look here. Here's a diving dialog, and basically when we self-destruct, we want to run autocomplete.invoke. Here it is. So we're going to go ahead and just take a look at this. Dialog clearing out. Go over to the console, and we should get the dialog clearing out as a as a line. If not, then we'll fix it. Do 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 do. Where are you? So there, you can see how it says dialogue clearing out, which implies that that part's running fine. This onComplete is not the problem. It's signing up for the onComplete that doesn't seem to be working right. So if we look over here at speak, here's the onComplete that's getting called. We're adding listener done, and then this should be getting called, but it doesn't seem to be. Debug.log done with speak scene element. Let's go ahead and see whether or not that function is getting called. I mean, we could do something incredibly strange, like putting in a breakpoint, but I never bothered to set this IDE up properly, so I don't think our breakpoints would work. There we are. Done with speak mission scene element. So that part's also working fine. Oh, you know what it is? I think it's that we're all saying the same thing. Because I actually have an optimization where if you try and say the same thing repeatedly, it reuses the same mission box. And I think what's happening is that that's actually getting called before the mission box gets destroyed, and then the mission box immediately gets destroyed. So we just get a never-ending... Where is it? I should really make this much bigger so that I can see it more clearly, because this is not... There it is. So you see how it says, Buddy says blah, Buddy says blah, Buddy says blah. They all said it right in a row. So what we're going to need to do is figure out why that happened all in a row. So when we do this, it shouldn't be calling the next scene element. So here we are in play here. And what we do is we add one to index. If we're not playing, we just die. If we have nothing right now, then we play again. This should be a return. That's fine though. Otherwise, we do current on complete, add listener play, and then we do current.play. Play here, this play shouldn't be called. Oh, you know what's happening? The mission, this collider is set up to fire this every single time that the player enters. And the player has 3 or 4 or 5 different physics objects, each one of which can enter the collider individually. Which means that basically when the player hits this, they hit it a lot right in a row. So what we're going to do is we are going to make the box collider go away once this happens. That should prevent us from running it 3 times in a row. I forgot to make it bigger again. There we are. And you can see the box collider went away. And we got hua wa la la. And then we get afterwards the next one. But the next one doesn't work. And the reason for that is because the diving dialogue is using onComplete.invoke and then destroying the game object. The problem is that when we're actually using the talking head say command, it's going to take a look and see if you have a current dialog box, then we're going to reuse it. And unfortunately, we have a current dialog box, but we're a millisecond away from deleting it. So what we're going to do is just take a look and see whether changing the order fixes that, and if not, we'll do something a little bit more drastic. It's one of those situations where there's a weird combination of events. You know what? Time to just make this nice and big so that we don't have this friggin' problem anymore. Beep. Nope, wrong button. There we are. So here's our first line, and then, yep, we still have the same problem. So really what we want to do is we want to see, well, there are two options. One is we can destroy it, and we can mark it as destroyed, in which case we'll just check and see if it's marked destroyed. But we actually do want to reuse it if possible. So what I'm thinking is we should go ahead and do this, and then what we'll do here is we'll say, in some cases, the object gets reused, so check if that happened. If counter is greater than or equal to, where's the self-destruct? Close, there it is. Set trigger out, yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm thinking about how this works. I think we do want to destroy it and recreate it just to make animations easier. So what we're going to do is we're going to mark ourselves as enabled equals false. And the reason for that is because that way we can check. I don't think that destroy marks you as disabled, but if we mark ourselves as enabled equals false, then we can just go ahead and say if current dialog box and current dialog box dot enabled. And that should do it, assuming that the setting enabled to false happens immediately and not at the end of the frame, which we'll know for in just a split second here. There we go. That's what happens when you try and be clever and reuse stuff. There we go. Perfect. Everything works fine now. So now what we've got is a set of events, right? What we're going to do now is we're going to change the mission scene element. Sorry, we're not going to change it. We're going to add a new one, which we're just going to call a scene event. Once again, namespace missions. And you are a mission scene element. There we go. Oh wait, we don't need any of this. What am I talking about? Just delete that. We don't need it because we've already got it. Here, the mission scene element, we're going to just delete this. And we're going to be able to use them as actual scene objects. So what we're going to do is here, we'll just go ahead and, we could use speak at the same time, but I'm going to go ahead and just use it here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add some stuff. So what we can do is we can take this object here, which I believe is the small ruins. Here it is. Come on. And what we're going to do is we are going to, oh, it's not the small ruins, it's, sorry, the things inside the small ruins here. So we're going to take this and turn it off, and then we'll take this and turn it on. And what that'll do is it will allow us to have a change in that objective. So I'm going to fly over here and then turn around and fly right back. Just for testing purposes. Okay, so... Ah, I forgot to add it to the events. Idiot. Alright, so what just happened there is that we didn't actually put it in the middle here. There we go. Better. Let's try that one more time. This time I think we're going to move the box so that we don't have to do all of that nonsense. I think we might be too close. Oh, there it is. Good. Yep, there we are. So you can see that what I've done is I've had a mission event where our object was replaced by a holographic projection. Now, obviously, at this particular moment, it's definitely just a quick little replacement. It doesn't have any meaning and doesn't do anything. But the idea here is that when you go on missions, the things that are found ruined at the bottom of the ocean will become holographic projections of what they were, which will allow you to interact with them in some way. Now you can see that we can build missions like this. All we have to do is be careful about how we actually arrange these things. So, for example, this dialogue test cube is not the same object as the thing it's pointed to. They're not stacked on top of each other. But if we took this small ruins here and dropped it into the dialogue test object, boom. Now what we have is a dialogue test object that actually contains the physical object that it's targeted to. And we could do it the other way around just as easily. So it would be easy for us to make this a self-contained mission object, which the mission could then just drop wherever it wants, which is what we're going to do in a second here. We're just going to test it one more time and make sure we didn't break anything. So it should, yep, there it is. Easy as pie. And so we can take this dialogue test cube and we can go over into the mission system. Here it is. We'll drop the mission back over into our new level prefab and set this up so that it has the things we need it to have. So turn this on. And what we're going to want is just one. Apollyon 6K says, hello. Hello. And Mifa stopped in to say, robot. Robot. So we are going to just take a look at this mission. You can see how right now it generates rocks. Well, I think you know what we're going to be doing. We're going to be removing the rock and having it generate small ruins. Boom. We can delete most of these regions, but we do need to have one just so that we can have it in the right general setup here. And so we'll just can't scale it. That's annoying. Whatever. We'll work at that later. So we'll just move it like this for now. The fact that we can't use the scaling operator is an oversight. I should have probably done something about that. That's fine. I can probably still do something about it without too much difficulty. So, oh, I still can't use the scaling operator. And nothing has changed in the past 14 seconds. Apollyon says, how are you and what are you working on? So, I'm pretty good, except for walked home in the heat and it was plenty hot. So I'm a little bit foggy, but that's okay. And we're working on a diving game because the spaceship game I was building didn't turn out to be any fun. And I couldn't make it fun. I tried for like a week off screen to try and get it to have some semblance of fun, and it did not work out. So we're not doing that anymore. I couldn't save it. So that's where it dies. Objective seeds. Mission objective. Okay, so it wants a mission objective. So we'll just add one. Dialogue test cube, mission objective. Boom. We got 2 mission objective scenes? What's up with this? Shouldn't be 2 of those. There's obviously an error. This is the only one we should have. I guess I'll drop that in, but I'm not sure where the other mission objective is. My guess is that Unity has it cached because we changed namespaces, and it didn't realize that it needed to clear its cache. Whatever. So now what we've got is a setup where this mission is going to be dropping off this dialogue test cube as its objectives. We're going to just, you know what, I'm going to make the region bigger. I'm going to make it really big. There. And that way it'll work fine. We've got it so that it's going to set up 4 of them, so there'll be 5, including the one that I just happened to leave in the scene for no good reason. And we're going to have this be a 0, unless we want to add it as the first. You'll add it as the first here. So now when we hit play, we should see 5 of these. So there's our first one there. Let's go ahead and hit it. And then it turns into a hologram, and it's marked complete. And then there should be 4 more. It looks like there are 3 more. My bad. Let's go find them. One of them is apparently this way. What are you, blind? Follow the giant glowing icon. Oh, well, I found it, I guess. I think it might be off center. That's what the problem is. So I think it's probably below the surface because of the way that we are spawning them in. Yeah, you can see that they're not where they're supposed to be. And the reason for that is because I'm using 0, 0, 0. And this is not really set up that way due to the fact that this is inside rather than outside. On. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop this outside and then drop the dialogue test cube inside of it. We'll make this the mission objective, like so. And remove the mission objective here. And once again, we will just drop it into the slots where it's supposed to go. And now that it's set up correctly, it should set up fine. But we want to disable the spraying. It's randomly orientating them. I guess we'll leave it on for now. So that's the one we have already done a couple of times. We'll get it one more time here. Oh, there's another one. So what it looks like happened is they all fired at once. What happened? Okay, well there's some undamaged ones over here, or rather, still damaged ones over here. Not sure what happened there, but we'll go ahead and hook up this one. I think what happened is I was actually going through 2 sets of those. There was some weird stuff going on when I was hitting E. So, there we are. So you can sort of see how that works. In theory. And those mission objectives are very, very trivial to spray however we want, but the problem is that they don't connect to each other at all at the moment. So when we drop one of these objects, we don't really get any feedback as to where the objects, what sort of mission progress we have and that sort of jazz. Because of that, there's no real feel like we're actually accomplishing anything. What we're going to want to do is set this up so that these mission objects are part of a larger mission. Duh, right? The only problem is that that's harder to do than you might think if you're not just seeding everything yourself. But we can just seed everything ourselves. It's worth thinking about in either direction here. The last one is over there, apparently, on top of the wall. The idea here is that normally you wouldn't have such a weird, large target zone, but I just wanted to get things going. Sorry, I'm thinking through things on camera, which is never really a very interesting thing to do. But the idea is that, for example, this ruined hab. If you went down into the ruined hab, one of your goals would be to figure out what ruined it and where everybody went. To do that, there would be a lot of elements that you would need to go and find. things like corpses or science experiments or strange events that weren't reported, stuff like that, right? And those are all pretty simple. Those are just things that you go out and you scan, and it comes up with some dialogue and tells you some details. But there are also like cornerstone objects, like the hab itself. When you scan the hab, it'll probably give you some leads on where you can go to get more information, but you're still going to come back to the hab. But once you know more, you can go up to the hab again, and you can get more information about the hab. So the whole point here is the way this is set up isn't simply a straightforward linear mission. There are objects which are much more critical, much more central. And I think that what we're going to want to do when we're creating missions is we're going to want to manually plant the critical mission elements that you're going to return to over and over and over, and then we can scatter the rest pseudo-randomly. And I think that that will give us a good combination of things. So Apollyon came by, and it said he was raiding with a party of 5, and then, or I presume it's a he. But the number never went up from 3 viewers. I have no idea whether or not Twitch actually knows how many viewers are happening or what's going on. But my stream is not the most interesting thing around, so I can see why they wouldn't have stuck around anyway. So the idea here is that these are also not simply things that need a dialogue collider around the outside. We don't need this collision responder. If we were to turn off this box collider in the first place, what we can do is up here on the small ruins, here's this mission objective. What we're going to do is we have this very, very basic setup, right? Where it just goes up to its parent and marks the mission objective as complete. But what we really want to do is be able to touch the mission and have it activate, because it's not a matter of us necessarily swimming up to it. It's usually a matter of us interacting with something. So what we want to do is use an interactive pop-up, right? So the good news is we have interactive stuff. It's called a highlightable object. If we drop it onto the small ruins here, we can have the target be our broken mesh renderer. There it is. Like so. In order for that to work, we're going to have to switch MadMain generic over from standard to highlightable, which takes about 45 seconds. There we are, highlightable without glow. So that should be fine, but you can see that it's wiped all of our textures. So I don't remember what textures we were using. I don't think it matters too much at this point because we're just in a very, very primitive setup. Let's go ahead and use flakes. Ooh, that's like strangely not flaky. I thought it would be flakes. It's like blue noise that's multicolored. That's not really what I want. Force shield waves, that's what we'll use. Apollyon says that I'm quite hidden without a category like science and technology. Well, I'm not sure that this is science or technology. You'll have to let me know. This is very dark. It shouldn't be this dark. Let's switch it back to the standard shader for a second here. Yeah. So what albedo are we using? It's still very dark. Oh no, there it is. What albedo are we using? We're using none. Okay, so this is actually just the coral normal map stretched a little bit. But for some reason, the other shader was pitch black. It might have been inheriting that for some reason. Let's try that one more time. Highlightable. Well, I mean, this is a very dark object. Let's go ahead and just switch it out for none. Even when it's none, it's still pitch black. I don't see any brightness at all. Okay, I think the highlightable without glow might have been broken. Highlightable with glow is probably broken too, but we'll go ahead and give it a shot. Anyway, now that that's highlightable, the setup should work to allow us to highlight it. So this highlightable object script will allow us to create that highlight. Unfortunately for me, this is a little obsolete and I didn't really set it up right, but we're going to go ahead and give it a shot here. And when we're interacting with it, what we're going to want to do is run the mission that we created. Play. And then we're going to want to turn it off. I thought there was an easy way to have it turn itself off. Oh, available. I can just set its availability to 0. No? That's interesting. There it is. All right. Apollyon says, game dev is part of the science and tech according to Twitch. Oh, that's interesting. That's kind of silly. I would think it would be creative, but I can switch it right now. Science and technology. Is it under S? Or is it... I only get up to Anime Freak, which is A's. Let's go ahead and... Science... And... There it is. There, I am now science and technology. Thanks for the tip. Twitch is spamming me with random bullshit now. At some point they reset some of their Chivos, and now I continually re-earn them every time I do anything. Not very much fun. Anyway, let's take a look at this small ruin and see whether or not this works. You can see how it's pulsing. That pulsing is actually the light from the thing on the left there. Obviously, it's a little buggy. We'll fix it later. What we should see is... I don't think that this is highlighting. I shouldn't have deleted that rock because that was set up correctly. And now I've forgotten how to set stuff up. So, oh, there's no collider bounds. That's the problem. So let's go ahead and set it up with some collider bounds. We can again use this cylinder. Now it should... Whoa! Well, that certainly does the trick. And then if we interact with it by using, what is it, click? Yeah. We get this, and then it changes, and then we get this. Easy as pie, right? So that's sort of what we want. Obviously, the visual is not there. It is, in fact, garbage, but that is the basic concept, right? So what we're going to do here is the highlightable object. Let's see whether or not we can bring this into a little bit of a tighter setup. One of the things we gave up on was the idea of having an exterior glow. The reason that we had to give up on it is because it was forcing us to use forward rendering this, and that's bad. We really can't do that. So we're going to turn off the outline and use any and all rendering paths. That way it won't error out. So we'll just drop this in here to make sure that it creates a save. There we go. We can close this down. This is still a very primitive shader. It barely exists, right? So we've got a couple of things like glow. I think we still have a glow. We got a glow texture, which is fine. But you know what we don't have is a tint. So let's add in a tint. There. We'll have it default to opaque white. We'll multiply. Are you saving? Can you save for me? There we are. So then we close this down and we just kind of spam it in and out a little bit until it reloads. I think it's done, but I don't see a tint. Did I make that a constant? I did, idiot. If you're asking why I keep doing that, reassigning it to the same thing, I think there's a bug in this version that I'm using where it doesn't mark it as dirty sometimes. So I just got into the habit of marking it dirty manually. So that should have worked. Oh, there it is. Should probably just change the order of it. It's a little bit too far down. It should be right up next to it. So we'll just open this up, go down into this, and move it up here next to the albedo, and then save it. Close that down. So it should move. You gonna move for us? No, it didn't save. It doesn't mark dirty. That's so annoying. Do something. Mark dirty. Stop being an ass. Thank you. So we need to put in a glow texture. In the previous version of this, I just used the leaves or the branches, these. And we can see how that looks by simply adding them. And you can see that's a lot better than just having it turn into a strange flat white glow. But it is not quite perfect because it doesn't actually have universal coverage. What we might do instead is we could use a projection rather than using the UV map, which would be a lot more handy. For now, however, I guess what we'll do is we'll just tile it. It's far from ideal though. Don't they have I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. The quad. It's like you use it on terrain usually. It's I can't remember the name of it. Four splats per. This is not what it is, but that sure sounds like what I want. Let's take a look here. Creates a standard terrain shader. Okay, so that's not what we want. Deleted. But it's very close to what we want. It's the same basic process. We just don't want that particular setup. Switch by face. Oh, that's not what we want either. That's actually pretty cool, but it's not what we want. Triplanar, that's it. Yep. Triplanar sample. So I believe that is the only triplanar. Yeah. So if we take a look at this, the triplanar sample is something I don't understand in this particular. I don't know how this widget works. I know how triplanar works. I could probably build it if I needed to. But what I'd like to do is see. I've just opened up the help file on top of my other monitor, so I can no longer see chat. But let me read this real quick. You do zip zip beep bop zip zip beep beep bop. Okay, so the tiling and the fall off should be able to be set to defaults. Yeah, there they are. We'll leave them as defaults for now. And then what you do is you add in an arbitrary number or 3. Well, we'll just go ahead and add in branches for all 3 and see what happens. So I actually don't know exactly how this is going to work, but we'll go ahead and save it and see what happens. Is this space world, mapping spherical, texture top texture 0. Material value, default white. See, on the actual, like, help page, it shows more than one slot. It shows 3, but it also shows values for tiling and fall off. No, that doesn't seem to actually... Oh, I see. Spherical projects one texture from all 3 planes, effectively wrapping the object with one texture. That's fine. That's fine. So cylindrical would have allowed us to have like a different top and sides and bottom, but that's not what we need at the moment. All right. So now what we've got is this. This is the triplanar setup. Top texture 0 is what it's called because apparently we're super smart like that. And you can see that changing the tiling does jack shit. So this splat map is really aggressive, and I think that we want to see if we can fix that up a little bit. That might be why they suggest it. So we'll take that glow texture out. We don't need it. And we'll have that tiling set as a property. Yeah, so even though in their example, they show it with a single value, but it needs to be a vector too. So that's going to be a property. I'll call this triplanar tile. And have it be 0.2 and 0.2. There we are. Here you can see it's called top texture 0. We're going to call that glow texture. And we can change the other values later. Just see whether or not that works. Yeah, it did work. Good. Now we probably don't want to use the thing we're using because it's clustered in the middle. So because of that, what we end up with is edges that are really noticeable. What we would like instead is a setup where it doesn't have to tile perfectly, although it probably should, but instead what we want it to be is like a lattice that doesn't have a noticeable beginning and a noticeable end. We don't currently have any of those set up, and I don't feel like opening our art program, so we'll just live with it. Let me bring back chat so I can see what's going on. Zargi stopped in at some point in the past. Sorry that I was focused and I couldn't see you. I was looking at a help file. I'm working on a diving game, so we're currently setting up mission systems for this diving game. And I am just now blocking out this idea of being able to interact with objects. So see how we touch it and it comes up with a little bit of glow, but it doesn't glow throughout. Now the reason for that is because the interactable object only covers this here, rather than covering... This is a different mesh filter than the one on the ground. So therefore we only get the glow right here. I think that's probably okay. We can change it to be whatever we want later on. But when I click, I get a whole bunch of gibberish, and then it switches over to hologram, and then I get more gibberish. And that is the basic plan. And there should be a bunch more of these. Let's go just take a quick look. Yeah, so the idea for my diving game is I want to make a diving game that, you know, works like a diving game. Oh, you know what I'm not doing? I'm not removing them. I want to make a game that works like a diving game, but I want to make sure that it that it's fun, that it has stuff in it. So I'm trying to build a mission system that can do missions in a more interesting way than, you know, take a picture of a fish. So we're going to get holographic reconstructions of the ruins that you find. So if you find a downed ship and scan it, you'll get the original ship. It'll sit there glowing. If you scan destroyed ruins, you'll get the original ruins. Scan someone's body, then you'll get a hologram of them maybe moving along the path they took. That should make it a little more interesting. Anyway, we have to add in a function here to trigger the mission objective. Now we should be able to actually do the mission. You see how it immediately highlighted a different objective because it figured that this one was complete. What we actually want to do is wait until all of the processes have been completed before moving on to the next mission objective, but we can polish that later. Oh, it's been an hour. I've probably got another 10 or 15 minutes in me, but if you have any sort of questions, now would be the time to ask them. I'm not going to be having a long stream today because I don't think my mouth can take it. I'm already getting a real sore throat. Whoa! I'll need to fix the hands at some point too. Boom. Because I set this up so half-assed, these things are just randomly plonked everywhere. Normally these zones would be a lot more tightly controlled. I was just playing around. Now you see, as I approach this, I do not get a glow effect when I'm down here. That's because this anchor isn't what we care about. It's this ball, or the tube. I've got some forward-only effects happening. We'll have to deal with those. I think this is actually on the far side. I don't think we're anywhere near it. Well, there's some fish flying through all of space and time. I have to fix the fish as well. They are doing a very, very basic swimming right now. Swimming is a little bit more interesting than that, so I know how. I just haven't done it yet. So we're getting close. There it is. I can see it. Easy as pie. And so the idea is that we'll build our mission out of a couple of hub objects. The hub objects will have multiple stages, and the idea is that as you find various other objects, you will move towards completing either specific stages or the next stage. So for example, if there were specific stage things, then you might figure out where the people went as one sort of subtask, and you might figure out how the science was going as one subtask. Otherwise, you might just find out more about the situation, and it'll unfold. Regardless of what you find, the next piece will unfold. Both of those are valid, and so the idea here is that we would set up our hub with a set of mission phases, and those phases could be set up to either be linear or parallel, and then the rest of the objects, some large majority of the objects that we plan to use, can be planted pseudo-randomly, and that will work out pretty well for us in terms of replayability and so on. It's also going to allow us to add fun things to our missions without needing to completely script everything at all the time. So that's going to be an important factor. We don't want to have to script everything down to the millisecond. It would just be too much work. So I will be thinking about ways to polish that up, but I don't think I can keep talking today. My voice is already dying. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. I'll see you on Saturday, same time, if you want to be there, or next Wednesday, if you want to be there too. Now we'll stop the play, save the game, and then I guess we will try and find where the stop button is. See ya.